Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Nauman. During this live webinar with Hammerhead, I forgot to hit record for the introduction part, so we're about to get right into it. Dakota is from Hammerhead, and he's about to give you a little bit of an overview about the demo program for Mammoth TUFF and also just the ins and outs about the device in general so that you are ready to just get the device set up and going for event day at Mammoth TUFF, September 16th, 2023 this year. I hope you can join us. If you are watching this because you are Karoo 2 curious, you can still sign up for the demo program. It's a free add-on during registration. You can also add it later if you've already registered for the event. So go check it out on Bike Reg. You can it's at the top of the screen, add the Hammerhead Karoo 2 demo to your cart when you check out for the event. We will see you there.
4G. In this little exploded view of the Karoo 2, you can see this, what looks like a little coin cell piece. What that is a SIM card tray. So you can open that, install a 3G or 4G SIM card, and actually use the unit offline. Well, I guess it'd be online. If you're out on a ride paired to the internet using that 3G or 4G, that will allow you to do some stuff that you would typically do within an app or on a website or dashboard. So you can search for an address, pin for pin, build a route on the head unit, things like that. Some other cooler stuff you can do, but as far as side loading apps and things like that, say Spotify, and listen to that while on a ride. None of this you'll be doing on the demo, but it is cool stuff. The high capacity battery we'll jump into in a second, but 2,500 milliamp hour. Realistically, that 10 to 14 hours of battery life, with the option to put it in battery save mode and things like that to increase the battery life beyond that 14 hours. 32 gigs of storage, 26 of that is for offline maps. So for this particular ride, you'll be in California. So I'll download California, and from the map screen, you'll be able to zoom out, move around freely, and see every bit of California and the detail within the map itself. Even little icons for bike shops, coffee shops, things like that. Oops, there we go. And then kind of out of the box, some of the hardware stuff, which you guys will have access to depending on your setup. Of course, a lanyard. I'll have that on every unit just in case you crash. We don't want to lose the unit. And then a quarter turn adapter and a Karoo 2 mount, the proprietary mount that we offer. It really depends on your setup. If your bike has a 31.8 handlebar and you don't have any sort of mount already installed, we can install our proprietary mount. The unit just slides in from the front, and then with 2 clicks to the left or the right, it'll slide right out as well. If you do have an integrated mount or any sort of K-Edge or really anything that has a Garmin puck, you can use the quarter turn adapter, slide that in the back of the unit, and then install your unit just like you would any Garmin or anything that's a quarter turn. The horsepower, mentioning the quad core 1.1 gigahertz, you'll see that just in the speed whenever you're using Control Center, opening the different apps on the unit, and really anything you do on the unit, you'll notice that it is definitely quick and responsive, quicker than a lot of people expect. 32 gigs of storage, like I mentioned, 26 gigs of that for maps. Just to put that in perspective, I've had my personal unit for 2.5 years, and I've yet to have to delete a map. So I've downloaded a ton of offline regions and haven't had to delete any to install more as I've gone on. The battery itself, as I mentioned, 10 to 14, so really 12 hours in normal conditions. But that can vary depending on how you're using it. Like I mentioned, the battery save mode, you can put it in battery save mode and extend that beyond that 14 hours. And then probably the most notable here, it is running an Android operating system. So if you're using a Garmin, Wahoo, Design, whatever head unit, you're going to be using their operating system, but on ours, it is very familiar to most users. It's going to feel very smartphone-like and give you some options that you wouldn't have typically on your head unit. Like I mentioned, the ability to sideload apps such as Spotify and listen to music with your Bluetooth connected headphones out on the road. And then we'll jump into some routing features and things. But first, I want to ask if there are any questions. If anyone wants to chime in with a question or give me the go ahead, and I'll jump ahead. Again, I can't see you guys for some reason, so I'll trust you, Amanda, to kind of give me the go ahead.
So far, no questions, unless Zach has a question. He gave me a thumbs up. But yeah, so far so good. Nobody's unmuted yet. Fun fact, that is my bike or Dave's bike. Either one of ours, but that's one of our bikes right there on the
Awesome.
screen.
It's this photo's used everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay, no one's unmuted. You can keep going.
All right, cool. So we'll jump into some route features here. Importing routes and editing the routes. Maybe not so important for you guys in your demo experience because I'm already going to have units ready to go with the offline maps and the routes set up. But if you did want to edit a route, you can do so on the head unit as long as it's connected to the internet. The examples here are at the dashboard. So your dashboard is basically your account where you would link your third-party apps, manage your routes, your workouts, things like that. And that is the account that you would sign in to the head unit on. Now, the units that I'll have for you guys will be signed into my account, and it'll already have the routes, the maps, things like that. So you won't need to worry about any of this. But importing routes is as simple as Strava, Ride with GPS, Komoot, pretty much any third-party app that you have synced with your account, it'll pull those routes. But you can also pull those from URLs or any GPX file, things like that. So if you're out on a ride and you don't have the route and your friend just sends you a URL to their Strava route, you can paste that in your dashboard and it'll automatically import to your routes within your dashboard and then appear on the head unit. Once the head unit is connected to the internet, it'll make that change. Editing the route, if you've built any sort of route on any software, it's going to feel very familiar. You can add and remove and drag and drop up to 100 waypoints in a single route. And then route collections. This is something you'll likely see on the head units. The example there on the left. You can organize your routes. So an example would be if you had, 10 road routes and 6 gravel routes that you do pretty often. You might put those into collections, your gravel routes and your road routes. And that way, whenever you're on your ride, all you have to do is open your collection and see that group of routes rather than scrolling through a list of 16 routes to find your particular route. And in some cases, people have hundreds of routes. So it makes it easy to organize all of those. The map styles you will see on your head unit. This is an example of the map screen without any data fields. So that is looks like it's zoomed into 500 meters. And you can see the different cycling networks. Example there, the white road with the green edges, that's indicating a bike lane. You can zoom in and zoom out and see different networks and things like that, as well as unlock the map, which it is unlocked in this picture here. You can unlock or lock that and basically move around and see the entire area. Creating a route, again, not very important for you guys, being I'll have the routes built for you. But one thing to note here when building the route on the dashboard, you have different tools to see the map type and the route type. So if you did want to ride only gravel or only dirt or road, you can choose the route type and make sure you're hitting all the gravel you want to hit. You can also toggle the elevation graph. A lot of people will receive routes and then question which direction the route goes. One little trick, you can always open the elevation graph for any route and then follow the route to see which direction it's going. Routing to point of interest and routing to home and then routing to start. Things you may not use on the ride. Route to point of interest, you surely won't use. This one is handy though, because you can create points of interest that are at an account level or a route level, and you can do this mid-ride if you wanted to. But essentially, you can load these points of interest, and then whenever you swipe down from the top to open the control center, you can navigate there, or you can navigate home, which would be your home address, or you can navigate to the start, which would be the start of the activity. The route to home, you probably won't use because with my account, it'll take you to my home. The route to start is definitely handy if you do somehow get lost and our rerouting is not helping you out, which it definitely will. But if something weird happens and you need to get back to the start of the ride, you can always navigate to the start and it'll take you the most efficient way back. Cool. Any questions about the routing? Not a ton of information there, but definitely gives you some sort of idea to what you're going to expect. And we'll talk more about it in person. You'll see it in hand as well.
Did I see that you can import a route from Google Maps?
Yeah, so if you were to build a route in Google Maps, I believe Google allows you to either export that or use that link to then import as a route, the URL link.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
And not many people build the routes in Google Maps, but you can.
Yeah,
They allow you to search, all the addresses and things like that. If you were building, say you were bike packing and you were just hotel to hotel
right.
and you didn't want to get too creative, you could use Google to just pinpoint all of that and then take that route and import it in your dashboard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, one thing for people listening, a lot of like Strava, Ride with GPS, the paid accounts are the ones where you need to get like super fancy with their route building, and the Hammerhead dashboard, like you can just do that with having the device and being able to toggle the maps and how they look and look at the different elevation profiles is nice. And that's kind of a feature that normally with some of the other programs you have to pay for. So it's kind of cool just to be able to do that in your dashboard.
Yeah, and our dashboard's free. So if you know you're going to be demoing a unit, again, it'll be signed into my dashboard account, which I use for demo. But you're welcome to, after this call, hammerhead.io/sign up and create a dashboard account. Go ahead and start linking your third-party apps. Go ahead and just play with the route builder. Do whatever you want to do to explore that. And then when the time comes, assuming you have the route in your dashboard, you can sign into one of my units and it'll give you that route as well. As long as it's in your dashboard, it'll import that to the head unit. So you can sign into any head unit on your dashboard account and it'll pull all of your routes and settings and things like that. Same thing for customizing your profiles and your data fields. All of those go with the account. So if I have one account for 40 demo units, I can sign into all of those units and get all the data fields and routes that I need. So you guys can go ahead and start playing with the dashboard if you want. I encourage you to, since it is free and just takes a few minutes to sign up.
Cool. No one's unmuted, so you can keep going.
Right. So getting into some ride stuff here. So with our data fields, we also offer graphical data fields. This one's pretty cool. If you have a route loaded, if you have a drivetrain connected, if you have tire weights connected, if you have, even just a heart rate or power meter connected, you'll have graphical data fields for a number of things, e-bikes and the e-bike integration. But the coolest, I think, is the drivetrain integration. And this is something you can do as well on the head units. If you have an Axis drivetrain from SRAM, you can pair your drivetrain, you can configure the gearing, and you can see which gear you're in visually, as well as adding some different data fields for like total number of shifts. Always interesting whenever you're out on the ride, seeing how many times you actually shifted. It's usually higher than people assume. But lots of cool graphical data fields. One that might be useful too, and I'll put some of these on the unit, is upcoming elevation. So if you have a route loaded, you'll see the elevation profile for the route as it's approaching, just to see what's uphill, what's downhill, just kind of a flow of the actual route itself. And then sensor precedence, again, if you're going to be pairing sensors, this is important if you do have speed and cadence, because you may be getting speed data from multiple sources or cadence data from multiple sources. A good example being if you have a speed and cadence sensor built into your frame, and then you have a power meter, which also gives you cadence. One of those is going to have to take precedence. So in the example there, they're setting the power meter, dragging that above the cadence sensor to set precedence to the power meter itself. So you'll no longer get data from the cadence sensor, and you'll instead get the cadence data from the power meter. Live tracking, this is something you can definitely do as well on the rides. The one thing to note is for live tracking, you will have to have the unit connected to an active internet connection. So a good way to do this, if you don't have a SIM card, is just to use the hotspot on your phone. So pre-ride, if you wanted to connect to the hotspot on your phone and then share out a live tracking link, you definitely could, and have someone follow along for the actual ride. Drop pin navigation, again, we won't be using, but it is very cool, very useful for a number of things. My favorite is for Strava segments. So one thing that's cool, if you are a Strava premium member, you do get their live segments. And on our maps, you can zoom out and see all of the live segments kind of scattered throughout the map and where they start, where they stop, things like that. Drop pin navigation is useful for that. If I have no interest in building a route and I just want to go ride and maybe go for a segment or two, what I can do is walk outside, zoom out on the map, unlock it, go to the Strava Live segment, and then drop a pin at the start of that segment, and then instantly get turn-by-turn directions to that segment. So no thought, I can just drop a pin, follow the route, and next thing you know, I'm at the segment. Saving a ride and ride summary screen. This will be important if you do want to see the data from your ride whenever you do the demo. So saving a ride is simple. You finish your ride, you manually pause, and you hit the checkered flag there. And then that brings you to your ride summary screen. From the ride summary screen, you do get to see some of the data for the different sensors you have connected. So it's kind of scrolling through there to show you, the elevation, the power, the cadence, and the heart rate data. Just giving you a condensed kind of view of that data. But from that screen, it also allows you to change the title, which will be the title that's sent to your third-party apps. For me, and if you want the fit file, this is really important because I have all of these head units on one account. They're all going to save as morning ride, and morning ride for you is the same morning ride for the other person. So if you guys do want the fit files post ride, this is important that you change the ride title on the head unit just to your name. That way I know who you are and that is your fit file. Pretty simple. You just tap morning ride and then type in your name, and it'll save as your name for the ride. Something you won't have to worry about on your own units, but for the demo purpose, it's definitely important if you want the fit file. The ride details page, again, if you have your own dashboard account, this is where you would see it. But for the demo, you're not going to be able to see this stuff unless you take the fit file that I send you and import that into your dashboard. So ride details page, the ride summary screen kind of had a condensed, see your average power, your normalized power, or your average speed, your max speed type of data. But on the actual ride details page at the dashboard, you're going to see all of the data kind of exploded, and every bit of all the averages and maxes and time and everything. You'll also be able to see the lap data on the actual map and where you rode. You can also see the elevation profile and toggle the different sensors that you had connected. This is kind of cool if you like kind of geeking out on this data. If say you were going for a PR on a gravel climb and you were kind of wanting to dial in your gearing, your tire pressure, anything and everything to make sure you PR. If you had tire whiz connected and a power meter connected and cadence sensor, things like that, you could then overlay that data to see real-time tire pressure, cadence, power for that given section of road and see what works best for you. So pretty cool to see all the data overlaid and how it changes ride to ride. Sweet. And then we'll jump into some of the features. This is some stuff you'll really see on the rides. But yeah, if there are any questions, I'll answer them.
I will say one suggestion, if you guys can pick up the device the day before, if you are coming in on Friday, make sure you try to pair your sensors at your hotel room maybe before the morning of the race, because if you try to do it in any sort of proximity to 100 other heart rate monitors, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So I would recommend trying to like go and do that beforehand somewhere, or in the parking lot, maybe just somewhere kind of out of range of other people's. But it is a really fast syncing process once you can do it.
Yeah, definitely important to note. And that's the same for any head unit and any room full of sensors.
Yeah.
You can, even if it's day of and you forgot to pair your power meter or heart rate monitor, just run off 50 feet from everyone. And that's usually good enough to pair yours or only find your sensor. Otherwise, you're going to get a mess of sensors and not know which one is yours unless you know the number to look for.
Yeah. And then one more suggestion, the making sure that you, like you said, title your ride at the end of it on that demo unit device, that you have your name so that you can get the file later. And that's just, like Dakota said, unique to this situation. One thing I love about the device is how fast it uploads to your accounts afterwards. I've had devices in the past where it just takes forever to sync to Strava or whatever other platform you're using, but the nice thing about these is it's pretty fast and instantaneous, and obviously you probably won't be able to experience that during the demo thing, but for future use, if you end up getting it, it's nice.
Yeah, and I do see a question in the chat about live tracking for when you do PRs or races. and how far behind you are from the previous ride, race, or PR. Not Hammerhead or Karoo 2 specific, but if you were using a Strava account, a premium account, and you had a segment created for that particular ride, route, or PR. So if you did a certain, course and you saved that as a segment, the live segment would pop up on your Karoo 2, and you would be able to see a visual of the elevation profile, as well as see your PR and see how far ahead or behind you are, as well as see not only you on the route, but the PR on the route. So you can see if you are ahead or behind visually, not only on the segment, but on the elevation profile. And then also in real time, if you're ahead by 3 seconds or behind by 12, it'll show you that on the live segment pop up. But again, you do need to be a Strava premium member to have access to that.
It is a pretty cool feature. It's like it turns your ride into a video game all of a sudden if there is something that you're trying to chase.
It's motivating.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'll jump into some of the basic features. All right, so this is some stuff you guys will be using definitely as soon as you get the unit. The control center, it's super easy. You just swipe down from the very top of the screen and it'll open the control center, or you can use the left and right buttons simultaneously to open the control center. But this is going to be useful for you for calibrating your power meter, changing screen brightness, opening the sensors to pair your sensors, adding the route, turning on or off auto pause, turning off the screen, connecting to Wi-Fi. Pretty much anything and everything is done from the control center. And again, to open that, if you want to use the screen itself, the touch screen, you just swipe from the top, and to close it, you would just swipe it back up and out of the way. But with the buttons, you can also just press the upper left and right buttons together at the same time, and that'll open and close the control center. And then the control center pages, like I just went over, there's a ton of them, but devices, ride, system, notifications, display. There are a couple of different pages there, and you can swipe through those and tap to change things or to go into different things, or you can use the buttons themselves. So you can use the left and right buttons to actually scroll through those. Light and dark mode, this is something you can change as well once you get the unit. So I prefer the white background with the black text. But once you get the unit and you open the control center from the actual display page, you can toggle that from light to dark if you wanted to use the dark mode, which would be the white text on black. Doesn't change the battery life or anything like that. That's a common question. But it's just preference for visual. And then a lot of information here on the left. I'll let you guys look at that and try to read all of that as it scrolls through, but it's essentially pointing out everything that's within the control center, which is a lot of stuff. The notifications page is pretty neat because if you do power on the unit and there's an update that needs to be downloaded and it's automatically downloading, you'll see the notification there. If you save your ride, you'll see the notification and the progress as far as uploading. So if there was an issue with Strava and it didn't upload, but it uploaded to Training Peaks, you would see that there. And you could go back in and re-upload to Strava if Strava was having an issue. A heads up you might get if you have a shifter battery that's low, rear derailleur battery that's low, power meter battery is low, any sort of sensor that has an issue. Even a Ant Plus smart light, if you had a tail light and the battery was dying mid-ride, you would get a heads up and get a notification there. And as I mentioned, using the control center, you can use the touchscreen or you can use the buttons. Using the touchscreen, or sorry, not using the touchscreen is important. If it is, just a total downpour and you don't want to use the touchscreen, you can actually press, like I mentioned, the upper left and right together at the same time to open the control center. And then using the left or right button, navigate to the display screen and then enter the display screen and actually select the rain lock. And that would lock the touchscreen totally. That way you can only use the buttons to navigate the unit and navigate the control center. So you could enter the control center using the bottom right button and then select the actual brightness adjustment, and then using that upper left and right button, basically scroll the brightness up and down. So everything you can do with touchscreen in the control center, you can also do with buttons only, and it's super simple once you actually start playing with that. Cool. And then we'll jump straight into just some highlighted features here. And this will kind of be the last section. Turn-by-turn directions, Strava live segments, and climber. You're not going to see live segments on the actual ride, but you will see the turn-by-turn directions and the climber feature. Turn-by-turn directions, of course, you'll have a route loaded. You'll be following a route. So you'll have our drawer system, which you can see on the left-hand side in yellow and white. You can also see it in the middle there in orange for Strava and blue on the right for climber. So the drawer will pop up. You'll have a small window for the current direction, but you can also swipe that full screen if you wanted to from the bottom and scroll through all of the directions for the rest of the route. Really nice to be able to pull that up and then hide it and still be recording all the activity in the background. You'll also, with a route loaded, you'll see that yellow line there on the map. If you were to zoom out, you would see the entire route. You could unlock the map and go see, 20 miles into the route. If you're going to turn left or right, you'll be able to see that visually on the map, but also in the turn cues there. Strava live segments, again, we won't be using this, but as I mentioned, and Amanda mentioned, it almost makes it like a little game. One thing I do is if I have no chance of getting the KOM, you can go into the settings and disable the KOM. So I'm not chasing that number. Instead, I can chase my PR. And visually on the map there, the elevation profile, you'll see, you have 9.9 3/4 kilometers left, and it'll progress through the actual segment to the finish line. And not only will you, but your PR or the KOM will progress through there as well. And you can swipe that full screen as well, and it'll show you the leaderboard and the times to beat and things like that. Again, only for Strava premium members. Strava does not give live segments to anyone but premium members, and that's for all head units. Climber. So this is a feature you guys will see, assuming there are climbs on these routes. I'm thinking there are. So climber will pop up from the bottom, just like the turn-by-turn directions or Strava live segments. It'll pop up in our drawer. You can swipe it full screen to see all of the data, or you can swipe it down to a half screen, or you can completely get rid of it and swipe it all the way to the bottom and minimize the tab there. But climber is essentially going to pop up and show you how many climbs there are. If there are 20 climbs, you're going to see all 20 climbs. You're going to see how long they are, the average gradient, and at what point you actually start that climb. Once you actually enter the climb, it's going to pop up and progress through the climb to show you the change in gradient and also show you the progress which you've made. So how many feet or meters to the top, and how many miles or kilometers to the finish. It won't show you speed and stuff there. If you do want to see your speed, your power, you'll just swipe that down and see your actual data field, which you have set up. This is a cool feature because you guys will be using it with a route, but we've actually updated this in the last year and now have predictive path. So you don't need a route loaded. So if you had a friend with you who was on a ride and you had the route loaded and you had climber showing you all the climbs, your friend next to you using a Karoo 2 without a route loaded approaches the same climb that you're approaching, they would also get that climb data for that particular climb because the unit is predicting that they're heading up that climb. So they'll see all the same data that you see for that particular climb. They won't see all the climbs throughout the route because they don't have that route loaded, but they'll see the information for the particular climb that they're on. Very handy if you're just out and about exploring and you don't have a route loaded and you see a hill that turns into a big climb. You'll be able to visually see on the unit if you want to turn around or not. Or if it starts kind of calm, 3%, and you're just cruising, and then 20 minutes later, it's 10, 12%. Gives you the opportunity to turn around before it's maybe too late. Phone notifications, you guys can pair your smartphones to the unit as well before you ride or the night before. Basically pairs, via Bluetooth and plus to the unit, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, no problem at all. And it'll pop up in the drawer system there. You can swipe it up. You can see the notifications, whether it's a text, a phone call, an email, things like that. And then you can tap on those notifications to see, the whole text if you wanted to. You can't send text or phone calls from the unit. That'd be pretty cool, but you can't do that at the moment. Lap data, you guys can definitely use this if you want, especially if you have sensors and you want to pace up a particular climb, however you want to use it. Laps can be toggled at any time using the bottom left button or tapping the screen whenever the lap icon is on the screen. But at any moment, you can lap and swipe up the drawer as well and see the lap data and the different sensor data that was recorded during that lap. You can change some things in the settings for lap if you wanted to do auto lap by location, especially if you have your own unit and you're doing a race. That would be one way of pacing. If you wanted to, for a lapped course, you could do auto lap by location. And whenever you basically are passing through the start finish, hit lap, it'll drop a pin. And then every time you pass through that pin, it's going to auto lap for you. So you don't have to think about lapping. I also just realized the cadence on that picture is 240, which is pretty insanely high. But yeah, laps are pretty cool. The auto lap by location is really useful for different applications. But the drawer as a whole, that is everything we just talked about. They all live in these little tabs there. They all live at the bottom of the screen in a really thin line that you can swipe up at any time to see more data, swipe up full screen to see a lot of data, or just swipe it down and out of your way if you don't want to see that information. One thing I've done with my drawer and with the turn-by-turn directions is if I'm following a route, I actually don't like to see the notification pop up. It'll pop up in kind of a half drawer and say, like it says there, in 1 mile, turn right. I'd rather just see the map itself and know that I'm going to be turning right soon and then swipe up to confirm that, yeah, I'm turning right in 1 mile. So you can make all of these changes within the settings. Same thing for climber. If you wanted to take the unit you get and say you don't want to see the climbing information, you just want to do the ride, you can toggle that climber off if you wanted to within the profile. You can also toggle, big climbs, little climbs, or medium climbs. That way you're not seeing every little bump and you're only seeing the long climbs. And then this one I just had to put in here. It lives in this deck, but it is pretty handy if you do have a bike with an Axis drivetrain. I definitely encourage you to pair it. It'll send that data back and forth, not only to our dashboard, but the Axis app. And then if you have the drivetrain connected, you'll see in this upper right picture here, just the health of the drivetrain itself. So the battery life for the shifters, derailleurs, power meters, things like that. And an example there on the bottom is showing you the notification, just the warning that the battery is low. And then, of course, the visual for the graphical data field for the gears, which also shows you the battery life. But all of the data that's reporting in the fit file to our dashboard is also sent to the Axis app. So really cool to see all that stuff if you're into that thing, or if you already have an Axis account and you're already riding a bike with Axis and you're looking at the data already, you might as well pair it to the head unit. That way you get that sent back and forth. E-bike integration. I don't know if any of you are going to be riding e-bikes, but you can also pair your e-bike to the head unit as long as it's ANT plus LEV, and you'll be able to see different data fields. One that's pretty cool is just seeing the range of the e-bike compared to the route remaining. So you can pace the battery consumption so that you can actually finish the route on your e-bike without riding a heavy e-bike up the next climb. So a lot of really cool graphical data fields and things that you can do with e-bikes as long as they're ANT plus LEV. I definitely encourage you guys to pair those and play with the data fields if you are using an e-bike for this. And then routing surface preference. This is a cool one that lives within your dashboard. Again, you're not going to use anything here for the actual demo, but for your dashboard, if you wanted to set your preference to gravel, anytime you build a route, it's going to basically route you on all of the gravel you want. And then you can edit that again. And that's going to be for your drop pin navigation as well. So if you drop a pin and your preference is gravel, it's going to send you on mostly gravel because that's your preferred. And then that is it. So that is all that I've put in here. I've removed a lot. That way I'm not boring you guys too much, but still a lot of information thrown at you.
Yeah, that was great. That last part about the route or the surface preference, is that something that's activity based too, or profile based?
Yeah,
or is it?
Most of the settings now live within the profile. So an example would be if you set up your profiles for different bikes or different disciplines, So if you had a profile set for a TT bike, you would definitely want to prefer the road surface. But if you have a gravel bike set up for a profile, you would have the sensors set up for that, and then the surface type, of course, for dirt or gravel.
Yeah, that's one cool thing, because I've had people ask before, like, well, what if I'm on my road bike? I don't want but so yeah, you
Yeah.
can like make different activity profiles. I posted a video kind of scrolling through my activity profiles on the Mammoth TUFF account this morning, and I have all those set up kind of for different bikes also, and you end up wanting to do like different surfaces and stuff like that. Anybody have questions? Is that pretty straightforward?
I'm gonna say we're gonna have questions day of
I
or
know.
day before, and I encourage it. If there's anything that comes to mind, I'll be there to answer. So
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of really cool features. Really, the main things for us that we want you guys to know is, pull down for your control center, pull up for all those little drawers, and make sure you're using activity profile that also has the map. It's a good idea to just be able to, for Mammoth TUFF, especially the short course and medium course, there's a few more turns than the long one. So the more that you can keep an eye on your map screen, the better. For the demo units that you give out, Dakota, are they kind of going to be set up to preserve a little bit more battery life to begin with? Like no phone
yes,
pairing?
yes and no. It really depends on what everyone's expected timing is, and
Yeah.
I'll be handing the units over, so I'll be chatting with whoever receives the unit to determine how we might want to set that up. But yeah, just kind of to reassure you and everyone that you'll have a unit already set up with the map screen, so you won't have to worry about setting anything up there. You'll already have the routes loaded, things like that. So should be little work for you as the rider. But if there are any questions, again, I'll be there to answer those. And then day of or night before, whenever you receive the unit, we can make any sort of tweaks we need to fit, whether how to pair sensors or how to load the route, things like that. We can run through.
Yeah.
Uh,
Somebody asked if they were
yeah.
going to be able to pick up like a packet that had this info in it that we just shared. Or do we email it to them if you want something like that?
My understanding, Amanda, you were going to share this maybe with everyone who was on the call, just so they can reference it after.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. I've been recording it, so I think I'm going to throw it up on YouTube unlisted so that people can't search for it, and just be able to send the link out to those of you that are signed up.
Sweet. Yeah, so everyone on the call should receive this and be able to review the speedy kind of run through of this.
Perfect.
Yeah. And the plan right now, Dakota is going to be there on Friday. So during registration, you can come pick up the unit. If you're going to go ride like later in the day, you can test it out beforehand, and then if you are showing up the morning of, he is also going to be there early, is the plan right now. So for those of you that are going to show up on Saturday morning, it's still okay to pick it up then. And yeah, tell your friends about it. We had quite a few people that showed up to Mammoth TUFF last year, like just routing the whole thing on their iPhone with Ride with GPS in the background, which does work, but it's not the most efficient way out there. And I would like to try and preserve your cell phone battery life as much as possible. So if you have friends that are planning on coming to Mammoth TUFF and they're thinking about using their phone, just tell them to sign up for the demo program. We can get them the unit and just have them do it that way also. But yeah, no more questions. You guys are good. Thanks for doing this, Dakota. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And if any questions come up following this call, feel free to send them over and I'll answer those for you guys.
Perfect. Are you okay with me sharing your email address? You offered.
I'll let you collect all questions.
I'll moderate. Yeah, if you guys have questions, you got my email address. Send them to mammothtuff@gmail.com, and then I'll send over the complicated ones to Dakota.
Sweet.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Dakota.
Yeah, see you guys in a month. See ya.